2.5 years without answers. And now, a courtroom has quietly closed the door on one path to accountability. This wasn't just a lawsuit, it was a plea. A plea from a grieving family who had already been denied justice once. And now, they're being told it's not the government's responsibility to help them get it. But if the system can turn its back on Shanquella Robinson, what does that mean for the rest of us? Today, we're breaking down exactly what the judge's ruling means, what was dismissed, what still remains, and why this moment matters, especially for those of us who travel, trust our circle, and expect that if something goes wrong, someone will fight for us. Now, if you've been following this case since the beginning, some of what I'm about to say may sound familiar. But for those who are just now catching up, or for those who need to be reminded why this story still matters, we need to revisit the facts. Because behind every legal filing, every headline, and every delay, there was a real woman. And what happened to her still demands our attention. In October 2022, 25-year-old Shanquella Robinson traveled to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, with a group of people she believed she could trust. Less than 24 hours after arriving, she was dead. The group claimed she had alcohol poisoning, but a video surfaced online showing one of them, Daejhanae Jackson, violently attacking Shanquella while the others stood by. Shanquella was clearly not fighting back. That video ignited national outrage. Since then, Daejhanae Jackson has legally changed her name to Imani Green, but to the public, her role in that footage remains etched in memory. Shortly after the video went viral, a Mexican autopsy revealed Shanquella suffered severe spinal cord injuries and a broken neck, findings that contradicted what those travel companions told both her family and authorities. Despite the evidence, no one was immediately arrested. Mexican officials eventually issued an arrest warrant for the woman seen attacking Shanquella, but to this day, no one from that group has been extradited or charged in the United States. In April 2023, the FBI closed its investigation, calling the evidence inconclusive. No U.S. charges were filed, but Shanquella's family refused to let it end there. They filed a civil lawsuit in federal court, naming both the U.S. government and all 6 individuals who traveled with Shanquella to Cabo, the group now widely known as the Cabo Six. Their goal? To find accountability by any legal means left. On June 13, 2025, a federal judge issued a ruling that shook many people following this case. The court dismissed all claims against the U.S. State Department and the FBI. That means, at least for now, the government cannot be held liable for how it handled or failed to handle Shanquella Robinson's death. The reason? Sovereign immunity. That's a legal doctrine that shields the federal government from being sued, unless there's a very specific exception written into law. The Robinson family argued that the government violated their constitutional rights, specifically due process and equal protection, by failing to investigate Shanquella's death properly, and by not intervening as evidence emerged. But the judge ruled that the FBI and State Department had no clearly established legal duty to act differently than they did. And because the law doesn't spell out exactly how the government must respond in cases like this, especially when the death occurs abroad, the court said its hands were tied. So even if what happened felt unjust, the court decided it wasn't illegal under current law. This ruling doesn't mean the government did everything right. It just means the court won't allow the lawsuit to proceed against those agencies. For Shanquella's family, this dismissal isn't just a legal technicality, it's a devastating blow. Because while the group she traveled with may be directly responsible for what happened, it was the federal government they believed had the power and the duty to step in and make it right when everyone else failed. This part of the lawsuit was also where the family had the strongest hope of receiving meaningful financial compensation. When you sue the U.S. government, the monetary damages, if awarded, can be significant. Now that avenue is closed. And after spending more than 2 years fighting, funding legal efforts, speaking publicly, and reliving their trauma to keep Shanquella's name alive. They're being told the very agencies they turn to have no legal responsibility to help them find justice. This ruling isn't just about law. It's about grief, exhaustion, and the emotional cost of having to prove your loved one deserved better, over and over again. Right now, the chances of refiling against the government are slim. The judge dismissed the case with prejudice, which means the claims against the FBI and State Department cannot be refiled in their current form. The court ruled that sovereign immunity applies, and without a major change in law or new legal precedent, that door stays closed. In theory, the family could appeal this part of the ruling to a higher court. But appeals are costly, time-consuming, and rarely successful when it comes to sovereign immunity. So while hope remains for the parts of the case that are still active, this particular path, holding the U.S. government accountable, is for now legally blocked. Does that mean that the fight is over? No. Even though the claims against the U.S. government have been dismissed, the case is not over. The heart of the lawsuit, the claims against all 6 individuals who traveled to Cabo with Shanquella, is still active. These civil claims include accusations of wrongful death, emotional distress, and conspiracy to cover up what really happened. The lawsuit names all 6 by name, including the woman seen on video attacking Shanquella, Daejhanae Jackson, now known legally as Imani Green. But before the case can move forward, the court has to decide on one key issue: jurisdiction. Right now, the judge is weighing whether this lawsuit should move forward in U.S. federal court or be transferred to Mexico, since that's where Shanquella's death occurred. The Robinson family has made it clear. They want the case to stay right here, in the United States. Their attorneys argue that the defendants are U.S. citizens, that the harm was brought home, and that justice should be served where Shanquella lived, not where she died. If the court agrees, the case could proceed with depositions, discovery, and potentially a trial. If the judge sides with the defense and transfers the case to Mexico, things become much more complicated. So while the path forward is uncertain, it's not closed. The civil claims against the Cabo 6 are still on the table, and the court has yet to make its next move. Just days after the judge's partial dismissal, one of the most recognized names in this case, Imani Green, formerly known as Daejhanae Jackson, filed her official response to the lawsuit. And here's what might surprise you. She's representing herself. No legal team, no attorney, just her filing paperwork in federal court as her own defense. In her June 18th response, Imani didn't just deny responsibility. She went further. She argued that she was never properly served with the lawsuit, claiming the papers were delivered to a location where she does not live, and therefore the service should be considered invalid. She also claimed that the statute of limitations had expired, meaning even if the family's claims were valid, she says they filed too late. But let's be clear. These aren't defenses about what happened in that villa in Cabo. These are procedural defenses, legal maneuvers meant to get the case thrown out before the facts are ever fully examined. As of now, the judge has not ruled on whether her arguments will succeed. If the court sides with her, she could be dismissed from the case altogether. But if the judge finds that service was valid and the filing timeline still holds, Imani Green stays in it as the face of one of the most widely circulated and disturbing pieces of video evidence this case has seen. And all of this, every claim, every defense, depends on one major decision still looming. Will the judge allow the lawsuit to continue in U.S. court, or will the entire case be moved to Mexico? Because if the judge rules that this case must be handled abroad, the surviving claims against Imani and the others could face even greater obstacles or potentially vanish altogether. That jurisdictional decision will determine whether this family gets a shot at justice here, or whether the legal system once again puts distance between them and the people allegedly responsible for Shanquella's death. This case has never just been about Shanquella. It's about what happens when any one of us steps outside our home country, trusting the people around us and believing that if something goes wrong, someone will fight for us. But what we've seen, what we're still seeing, is that justice has borders. That even with a viral video, a death certificate pointing to spinal injuries, and a grieving family shouting from every rooftop, the system can still look away. If the government doesn't feel legally obligated to help, if procedural tactics can outweigh lived harm, and if justice can be denied simply because a tragedy happened in another country, then what safety net do we really have? This isn't just a cautionary tale for women who travel, especially Black women, who too often face a justice system that's slower to protect and quicker to dismiss. It's a wake-up call about how fragile accountability becomes when race, geography, and government policies intersect. It's also a call to keep watching, keep sharing, and keep showing up, because silence is what cases like this depend on to fade away. This case has incensed us all, and for good reason. What happened to Shanquella was senseless, cruel, and followed by a silence that should never have been allowed to last. And even now, with parts of the case dismissed and delays at every turn, we hold on to one thing stronger than frustration: faith. Faith that truth will outlast evasion. Faith that justice delayed isn't always justice denied. And faith that by keeping her name alive, we make it harder for the system to look away. We're not done watching. We're not done fighting. Justice for Shanquella.